it was okay that I was like frozen for that long period of time. It was like I wasn't doing anything bad or wrong. Like that was me, like trying my hardest, you know. Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Orphic. My name is Alyssa. I'm an astrophysicist. I just got my PhD, and I'm interested in understanding how the universe works from a conscious, energetic perspective. Everything is alive. Things have souls. The galaxy has a soul, and I want to know how it all works. What is the spirituality of the universe and of astrophysics? So please give me a follow on Instagram at interdimensional.astrophysics. Have some content there. Yeah. Hey.
Hi, I'm Mikayla with Mariposa Moonchild. I'm an empathic energy healer and intuitive medium. I just really desire to be a part of, or I guess am really called to be a part of the activation of the healing, the ripple effect of healing across the planet. I believe that we're shifting into a new consciousness. Mother Gaia is shifting into a new consciousness. Humanity is shifting into a new consciousness, and in part of supporting that is learning to shift within ourselves, learning to shift ourselves energetically and do the healing over lifetimes and lifetimes of what has brought us here before, and the work that we've done to really shift into this next level of our consciousness and our humanity. And with that, I have such a deep curiosity and so many questions of, like the big question of who are we and why are we here? And I feel like I get little tidbits of it, but just to keep asking those questions and keep exploring that and venturing into that. Yeah,
That's good. Who are we? Why are we here? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a loaded question.
Yeah. All right, so we like to start every episode by grounding in and doing some deep breaths just to get present a little bit. So let's do that.
Yeah. So everyone, if you're ready, let's take a second. We're going to do a couple of really deep cleansing body breaths. So take a moment, feel into your body. Let's put a hand on the heart. Let's take a big, deep breath in, breathing from your belly all the way up through your lungs. Big breath. Just holding at the top for a second. Then opening the mouth and letting it go. Releasing anything negative, anything that feels heavy, and letting it go with the breath. Take another deep breath in. Pause. And release. Letting go of anything that may not be serving you. Letting it go with the breath. One more deep breath in. Pause. And when you're ready, let it go. Letting go of anything and everything that's not serving you. Everything that's ready to be let go. Release it now. Take a moment to feel back into your body, in this space, in this now moment, feeling centered, arriving here. And when you're ready, just bring yourself back into this space.
I was thinking about how much of a mess I was last podcast. Well, because I was just editing it last night and yesterday, and it was just so funny. Like, if anyone listened to the last week, well, we were in a fun, like, giggly mood. We weren't high, surprisingly.
No.
No, that would have been fun. But one time maybe. But yeah, it was just kind of funny how not here I was, but I feel like I'm happy to report that I am doing better. Oh yeah, and because I had also just gotten stood up for a date, and I didn't even think I told you. Did I tell you? I heard from that guy.
No, you didn't.
Oh yeah, I didn't tell you.
We've both been very busy lately, so we haven't caught up in a while, so this should be good.
I know. I feel like it was only just like yesterday that we got a chance to even have any more back and forth, me and you, in our text. And I was like, I missed you.
I know. I felt like it was like a good like week.
I know.
Felt like it kind of went into a vortex. Was like, whoop, but now I just like popped out again.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
when we go too long without talking that much, I get sad.
No, we don't.
Yeah, we usually don't go that long without talking. But yeah, so update. I was like stood up for a date last weekend or whatever, and just completely ghosted and didn't hear anything. And then, so what was it? It was about like a week later. It was the day of my graduation. I got like a text from him that was like, hey, sorry, like I just sounded Canadian there. Sorry. Sorry, I never got back to
sorry.
you.
What are you saying about Canadians?
What? No, that's how you say sorry. Right?
Is what? Sorry? What?
Yeah, sorry. I said I sounded
How are you
Canadian.
supposed to say, what do you say?
Oh,
sorry?
Sorry.
Sorry? No, that's gotta be the New York thing. Right?
But it's
sorry.
I mean, there's a spectrum, but it's definitely more Canadian to say sorry.
Sorry. I mean, I feel like that's how it's spelled.
I mean, O is up for interpretation. There's a lot of ways you could pronounce an O.
Somebody's calling me, which disrupted my video.
Oh no. Oh, that's
okay. I'm good. Okay. It might be a little tiny blip. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Anyway, I got a text on the morning of my graduation that was like, hey, sorry, never got back to you, like just been dealing with some stuff. And then he was like, congrats on graduating though, because he saw it on my Instagram or whatever. But I was like, I didn't answer. So that was,
of course not.
No.
Did you explain what happened last time on the pod?
Yeah. The ghosting of it all.
Yeah, so this guy just like straight up just
it was like we had
nothing. So like how many weeks later was that? So and
it was
1
week.
So he said, sorry, good job on graduating. Like that was it?
Yeah, he was like, he said, it was 2 texts. It was like, hey, sorry I never got back to you. Just been going through some stuff or just been dealing with some stuff. And then a second message, congrats on graduating though.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of what I said too.
Yeah,
hey,
it totally is.
Just like, I just think he's like in a place where he like doesn't have the capacity or something, and it's like way less about you. Doesn't make it any less like disrespectful.
Yeah,
but
I was surprised though, because I kind of thought that he was going to commit to the ghost, because it's like if you go that far as to like really like not message some. That was, it was, we had plans in the morning and then nothing. Well, in the morning we set plans for the afternoon. Anyway, so it was just funny. But I really thought he was just going to commit to the ghost, but it's fine.
You think he would have, because like,
if I wasn't graduating.
I just feel like is that door closed for you?
Oh yeah. For this person? Yeah.
So it's like yeah, he might as well.
I feel like he might
to the ghost.
I feel like he might try like one more time.
I think so too. I think that's why maybe he didn't commit to the ghost, because he's like, I'll just like pop back up. But it's just like, yeah, that's so wild to me. Like, I even feel like if you made plans like a week ago and then you check in on the day of and the person's like not answering, still doesn't make it okay,
right?
But to like
hours before.
Yeah, like
we
that
talked
morning,
hours before,
and then just be like, oh, like I'm going through some stuff. It's just like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I have compassion for this guy because I truly believe he must be going through it. But like, yeah,
wild.
Good luck.
But so I graduated. I had my graduation ceremony a few days ago. So
Congratulations.
thanks. That was nice. I didn't expect for it to be so exciting, or I didn't expect for it to be so like emotional. But at the same time, I don't know, because
Why
it's
not?
like,
I feel like you'd be very emotional.
I don't know,
It's
because
been like 10 years.
7,
Wow.
but close
Yeah.
enough.
So I said
Because
like.
oh yeah, it is almost like 10 years. Yeah, you're right. Because I always, the day that I cared about most was always the one in December where I defended, which was the
Yeah.
like gave my whole dissertation talk and everything, and that day really did go as magical and amazing as I envisioned. And so that was always the day, because yeah, you'd think that I would have had like my graduation day as one of these like visions in my mind, but because there was always such a different hurdle of actually giving my whole dissertation talk, and getting to that point was always the big like culmination. I visualized that day, and I never really visualized like graduation day, so it was always like a secondary thing. And then I just went into my
Yeah.
own world cocoon for the last 6 months. And then, yeah, only as it was like approaching again, and, like we were talking, we were like sending voice memos about it. I was like, oh my God, right. Like, I forgot that I have an opportunity now to remind myself of how far I've come, and really needing to be proud of myself. And, yeah, and it was really great. It was like there was a really great speaker and everything too. And her whole kind of message was about how success isn't a straight line. And yeah, and she was like an Olympian gold medal winner, a soccer player, and she was a UMass alum. And yeah, she just told this whole crazy story of like all these twists and turns, and like all these really long times that she was like flat on her face and everything, and all this stuff. So it was really nice. And yeah, and it was nice. My parents came and got to see my advisor and everything. And yeah, it was very nice to like really feel it and be there, and just like really kind of bask in it. And I don't know, it's like now, especially now that I've had like 6 months to process the fact that it's beneficial and everything. So
Yeah. As if it's
yeah,
been 6 months.
yeah, I
Like
know.
we're halfway into 2023,
I
guys.
know. Isn't that weird on its own? And
Yeah.
what's been strange for me, even though I don't know, now I feel like what's been strange for me in this since graduating was that like I used to be so afraid of time passing, because I was always on the clock for finishing and everything. And I used to be so every when a day passed, I was always like, oh God, like I didn't do what I needed to today. And it was always like, oh, time, it's fleeting from us. And I just like I was afraid of time for a really long time. And
Mm-hmm.
then now, and the difference in this last 6 months has been like, oh, like time is just passing. And I'm like, I don't know, I guess I don't really need to be like afraid of it. It just, I don't know, it's been weird.
No, I feel the same too. Like, I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it, but I feel a little bit like more okay with it now. I feel
Yeah.
like I was in a time before where I'm just like, oh, it's like going so fast. Like, oh my God. And feeling like you want to slow it down, or you want to be, I don't know, like in a different space or like
Hmm.
before. But
Yeah, just fighting what is. Like anytime you're doing that, you're just
yeah.
like really in resistance to what is. And yeah. So I also though had this like the night of my graduation, I had this really kind of profound realization about my own self-forgiveness. And I think, it was important that this and very divinely timed that all of this resurfaced again, of course, like around my graduation, because um so I did like really really struggle. Like if anyone here is like sort of a new listener or everything or anything, I really really struggled like towards the end of my program in the last few years, with addiction and stopping pharmaceuticals for assistance with my studying and everything. And 2022 was like the roughest of it all. And I feel like upon revisit, like a lot of things came up again to be revisited for a new level of forgiveness, because healing happens in layers, right, which is another important thing here. And because I record, so our 5th episode, I tell the whole story about my addiction stuff and how I really moved past it and everything. And I think that because that hasn't been the forefront of my mind for the last 6 months, I think that there is a big part of me that almost like forgot. It's like I did, but I didn't. Like there is a big subconscious or conscious part, I don't know, whatever, that almost like, because once you get to this next point, then you're just focused on the next thing. And I feel like there is a part of me that almost did forget how intense everything was towards the end. And like, but what's interesting is that it feels like this new layer that's come up is okay, because there's a few things. So there was like the stage of time that I was like more addicted, and then there was a stage of time where and so I need to have compassion for that version of myself that was in the hamster wheel, that was in it, that was so in it. And then there was the version of myself that was stopping and then that had to pick herself back up. And it's like I thought that I had reached a level of peace with that version of myself, which was mostly in 2022. That really was, I was like in the deepest dark night of the soul. Dark Night of Soul for most of 2022. And in that time period, I didn't get any work done, like any schoolwork, any work on my thesis done for 8 months. So that was from when I stopped the pharmaceutical stuff, from when I stopped that in January to like September. And there was a lot more going on that I didn't know in that time, because there was a chemical withdrawal that was happening. Like there was a lot. There's so many like levels of what was happening. But so this is what happened on Friday night, the night of my graduation. So there's this woman on Instagram who does like PhD coaching, and I actually had like a trial meeting with her like shortly before I got my act together to finish my PhD in like October 2022. I had a meeting with her. She has very much like a holistic mindset in the sense of understanding like burnout and understanding how you're not supposed to be working like all the time, and understanding that people are humans and have faults and go through ups and downs in their PhD programs. So she has a really great account. I didn't end up doing her like 3-month coaching program, but we stayed in touch on Instagram and everything. And she's just doing really great work because she's really helping people like get through their mental hurdles in their PhD programs. And so we've been in touch, and she had this Instagram story on Friday, like the day of my graduation. It was a message from one of her clients that she's helping, and she wrote something about how she successfully helped her client who didn't do any work for 5 months. That her client didn't make any progress, didn't do any work for 5 months. She successfully helped her like get out of that freeze mode and into progress again. And when I saw that, I like messaged her and I was like, oh my God, like other people go into that deep of a procrastination or like that deep of a hole like for that long. Because mine, like I always refer to, because for me, it was about 8 months. And I always have that number in my head because that's just what it was. That was the amount of time that I went where I made 0 progress. And
8 infinity.
Oh yeah, that is
0.
interesting. 2 zeros.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something interesting about that being like
that is interesting.
0 point, because like
what else I thought? The 9 months is also like the gestation period. It's like the time for a baby to grow. I kind of thought about that too. It's like I needed to completely be reborn in that whole time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a mathematician, so maybe this is a dumb question, but in the real scheme of things and consciousness, like Is there really a difference between 0 and infinity?
What a good question. You know, I don't think so, because I think that like 0 point, I think that I made like a few videos on 0. I've had a lot of downloads and stuff on it. Or 0 point, I think that like 0 is everything and nothing at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Like,
I
how can it
think
not
no.
be, right? Like,
Yeah, it's
like,
everything and nothing.
yeah, I don't know.
It's
Like,
the 0 point.
yeah.
0 point field. It's
And
like
then,
neutrality. It's like everything folding in on itself.
yeah, I don't know. And then like infinity is infinity. Yeah, so I guess sometimes they say like, there's like the one is no one, or infinity equals 1, and then so then there is a 0 and a 1, but
Yeah.
still, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. And I mean, and things are coded in 1s and 0s.
Mm-hmm. Right, the binary.
But yes, I was just thinking about but the binary. But even if something is binary, it is still all 1.
Like, you mean wholeness?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because it's like it's like splitting off into ones and zeros, but like 1 plus 0 equals 1.
Yeah.
So interesting. It's like this stuff is so deep, but like it's all I think about. I think about this shit all the time.
Interesting.
Yeah, so anyway, so she has this Instagram story about someone that didn't do any work for 5 months. And I responded and I was like, there are other people that procrastinate for that long. I was like, I really thought that I thought I was the only one that really went into a deep dark hole for that long a period of time. And she said and then she responded and she said, it's so common. She said procrastination is the biggest problem that I have among my clients. But yeah, she just really reiterated that like things like for that long of time period are super common. She sees it all the time in people that like come to her for help and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it just like, oh my God, just the aha moment, the like depth of healing and realization and like emotional release that happened in that moment. It was so deep because, you know, what it was and it was just so interesting because it was like I thought that I had brought a lot of resolution to that situation already. You know, I thought that I had forgiven myself, or I thought that I had maybe some extra context of understanding that, yeah, obviously like everyone struggles and it's never only you, even though you always think it's only you in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that I had some understanding of it, but I actually really didn't. And I actually didn't fully, because just at a conscious level, like nothing to do with like the healing necessarily, I truly didn't like, I know that everyone else gets into these holes or gets into whatever, but I thought that there's no way that anyone else could get into themselves into as deep shit as I got myself into.
I
was like, oh, other people probably procrastinate, but they probably for like a week or whatever, or a few weeks, or maybe a month or something. And I was like, there's no way that other people get to the level that I got myself to. But that's not true. It's not true. And it was like, I literally like felt it in my heart. Like my heart was like tingling, and it felt like my heart was being like cracked open. It literally felt like my heart was being cracked open. And it was this intense realization that like in that time, I hated myself so much.
Yeah.
I thought I was the biggest piece of shit in the world.
Yeah.
I really did.
And like every day for like 8 months.
Every day. The shame spiral, the shame, the self-hatred, it was so deep. I hated myself. And it was like this realization that like I never needed to hate myself as much as I did. And it just made me like, yeah, it made me really sad for myself and for that version of myself. It made me sad for all the other people that have the exact same experience, that have no other, that everyone just puts themselves in this vacuum, that they probably think that they're the only ones. It made me sad that because of my environment, an academic environment, or just programming, or everything that exists around us, that I didn't know any other way to respond to myself other than to hate myself. You know, I didn't know any other way to be in that time, any other reaction to my situation other than to hate myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, yeah, like it never needed to be that way. And I know obviously it did to an extent, because I had to learn from it, but it was just such a different level of realization around this, because yeah, like I said, like I thought that I forgave myself, or like I thought that I had some compassion in retrospect, but then when I think about it, I'm like, I don't really think I do. I think before Friday, before this night that I had this whole realization, I think before that I was like, yeah, like it wasn't the best, like I was dealing with a really rough time, but I still was being shitty. You know, I think
Yeah.
I still thought like, yeah, I was being kind of a shithead in that time. And it's like the fact that how common this is, and how like I was not anything close to the only person that had somehow, like, even though mine was, it's still the same thing, because mine was specific to like withdrawals and stuff like that, but it doesn't matter because it's all speaking to the same consciousness under the hood of not being good enough, being in this freeze mode of
Mm-hmm.
procrastination, being paralyzed because you're so afraid of being wrong, because you're so deathly afraid of taking the next step, deathly afraid of meeting your inner demon, that you can't do anything. And it's like, it's, you know, I really just thought that I really blame myself for getting myself in that point. And just, yeah, it just made me really sad for, yeah, really sad for that version of myself, for how much I hated myself, and just how much, yeah, kind of just really emphasizing like how much I had never needed to hate myself that much.
No.
And but yeah, but it was good, you know, it's good that that happened, because, and obviously man, you can't get much more divine timing than that. The day of my graduation, I had this thing that I see like sparks this whole healing, like a new level, a new layer of the healing of that. And I think clearly it was time. I think I pushed it aside a bit these last 6 months, because I got past it already, you know. And it's like, when you get past it already, you think like, okay, yeah, like I got past it. But I think there was a part of me that was asking for more forgiveness and some more like softness around that.
Yeah. I mean, there is levels to healing. You can do some work and then later, I mean, I feel like as you do the work, it just maybe becomes less and less loud. Like at first, it just seems like too much that you can't even face it. Cause that was part of it too, right? Um,
Mhm.
you're like avoiding the emotions that it brings up. If
Yeah.
that's like the shame and the guilt, and like
Yep.
you're avoiding how the work makes you feel, and if that is your inner child that needs to be
Yeah.
nourished or held or whatever. But yeah, there is layers to it, and I feel like when you start to dive into something that you've never really held space for, you've constantly been
Yeah.
avoiding, there's usually this really big kind of intense release because you think of all that pressure. It's like,
Yes, it felt like, yeah, like I said, the crack open, like it felt like there was like a piercing hole like out of my heart, that like something was released.
mm-hmm,
It felt like something, like the air was finally let out of something.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, you think like, I don't know, the vision I'm getting is literally like a cyst that keeps just like the liquid.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of gross,
Yeah.
but it just keeps coming into it and like building pressure, except for I'm the person who likes to pop
Mm-hmm.
pimples. So maybe you'll like it, maybe you'll hate it. I don't know. Growing and stuff. And it just, yeah, it keeps festering. And then once you decide to open it up a little bit, poof, big release. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that, I feel like, and so that goes for anything in your
Yeah.
life. If there's something specific, that you've been avoiding or emotions or healing, like the beginning of it, the tip of the iceberg will be the most difficult, intense part because you're saying yes and you're willing to open up that piece of yourself and feel the emotions. And it's just that feeling. So you're going to deeply feel the emotions that you've been avoiding.
Mm-hmm.
But then it gets easier. But sometimes there's still those layers of where
Yeah.
maybe the soul fragments are for that particular thing, or the different layers of where it's stuck in the body. And then, yeah, as you continue along your journey, you might begin to release more and more and open up more and more. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the interesting thing with our reality, because as that thing begins to heal and we begin to release, our reality still reflects the places that this might be triggering us, or that these things are coming up, to look deeper in ourselves and deeper at where we still need to be healed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, something did come up to give you that reminder to forgive
Yeah.
yourself and let
And
go of
like,
that blame.
you know what it was? It was that I feel like because whatever healing had to take place for me to get myself out of that situation, for me to get myself out of that deep hole, it was different. Like to the work that I did to get myself out of the hole is completely different than me going back and giving myself extra compassion for how hard on myself I was in the thick of that process, because it's different. Like, it's different. When I got myself out of that, I was kind of targeting like another previous few year before that version of me. I wasn't really, it really brought my attention to the fact that there is this of that whole experience that I went through in these last few years with that addiction and everything. Like, there was this aspect that had been a bit neglected that I didn't realize, which was how hard on myself I was in the thick of it. And it was like, because I just kind of got through that and was able to, when I got out of that, it was just, yeah, I guess merging myself back with confidence and kind of just trusting myself again. But it was like I had just completely disregarded how cruel I was to myself in that whole time. And
I mean,
and
what I'm kind of hearing is you were asking for something from yourself in that time period, more specifically your inner child. So what was your inner child asking you for from then?
Yeah, it was yeah, like forgiveness, compassion,
Yeah, I just what's coming.
because
Yeah, just I think love and
me
compassion for
me falling on my face every day was me doing my hardest, because look, I wasn't the only one that did that. There's so many other people that like fell on their face for like months and months on end, and I wasn't wrong. And like this person, this girl that this PhD coach that she just helped, like, she wasn't wrong for like falling on her face for 5 months straight and not getting anything done. She wasn't wrong for that. It was literally her like doing the best that she could.
yeah.
And that's what it was. It was like this realization that it was okay that I was like frozen for that long period of time. It was like I wasn't doing anything bad or wrong.
Yeah.
Like, that was me like trying my hardest.
Yeah. And just
That was me trying my hardest.
that version
and that was
of you.
what I could do.
Yeah, that version of you that was doing her best, like any version of any other human. All she wants is love and compassion, and just to be accepted for exactly
Yeah.
how she was.
Yeah. Right. And that's what was so like frustrating about that time period, you know? Like that, like I felt like I literally couldn't do any better than I was, which didn't look good on paper, you know?
Yeah.
Like that, like me, whatever happened and all the fumbles, even if it was a million days in a row, like that's kind of how it needed to be, and
Yep.
that's the process that I needed to go through.
Well,
Um
and another really, really important thing about this is that we are building a new paradigm and what that looks like. And so when you're like, yeah, I didn't look good on paper, it's like, well, who fucking says so? Who
yeah,
fucking says
yeah.
so?
So
And
true.
am I going to
So
allow my
true.
value to be attached to this piece of paper or whatever? And no, we're us indigo children, us leaders, we get to choose. That's back to our reality.
Mhm.
We get to
Yeah.
choose how it gets to
Yeah.
be and what we want to attach our worth to, if we're going to attach our worth to anything.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Right,
that's really
exactly. Like,
powerful too.
yeah, no, that is such a cool, like, added perspective of it because, yeah, that is something that, you know, I have thought about too. Like, on paper, I didn't make progress in my research for that 8 months, but obviously there was a lot happening internally in that time. And I do know that. And, you know, I was setting myself up for future resilience. And, yeah, it does look different. And another thing too that like, kind of this whole situation like makes me realize or just think of is kind of the power of just like how me that liberation for me happened because I found out that other because I wasn't alone in
Yeah.
that
So you didn't feel
experience. It
alone.
was only purely giving, like, what gave me permission was knowing that I was not the only one to do that. And so knowing that you weren't the only one, it takes away its wrongness. And it's how many people like can be in those situations where it just instantly you feel like other people having the same thing just instantly gives you permission to have your experience, when it's like also either way, even if you were the only one, it would be okay because whatever you're experiencing is what you're experiencing. But yeah, it was just so interesting too that it was like the piece, you know, the piece of the puzzle that like liberated me, that like got me to this liberation, was just the fact that like how much I was not the only one, and how much in that time you can in the shame spiral. That's part of what the shame spiral
Yep.
is, convincing yourself that you're the only one, that like, and that makes it worse.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Wow. Some big releases for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do want to like, I do feel like there's some more here, or I do kind of want to like do a quantum thing in a meditation and like really bring in that version of myself, because it feels like a kind of, you know, I've located this now as something that's ready to go to the next layer. And I do feel like, yeah, I think it could be really powerful to kind of just, maybe there could be some more release to do with it, and just really bring in that version of myself and kind of just give it some more time, like dedicate some, I feel like, a few hours to it or something.
I
So
wrote down a note to do a
mhm.
healing on you and release whatever's
Yeah.
ready to go with this. More of a cancel clear on your old story, letting go of
Oh
the old
yeah.
story.
Yeah, we should do
Yeah.
that.
So I actually, while you were talking a while ago, already wrote a note on it.
Okay, good. Right. Yeah, exactly. It is this old story, and it's ready to be released. And yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I think it just, you know, this is just super relatable, and it can be applied to everything. Um there's just so much self-hatred that can is possible in those times where you just like are really like in a ditch,
Yeah.
like metaphorically. for a while, and it's a lot of people have that, and sometimes it lasts for a month, or sometimes it lasts for 8 months, sometimes it lasts for a few years.
Yeah.
And
it's part of the
everyone's
process. Like you
been-
said, there's nothing
Mhm.
bad about it. Like that's actually part of you going through this really messy, raw death. But
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, as cliche as it is, like without death, there is not life. And like we're constantly in these death and rebirth processes. So if we're not dying, we're not growing. I was just had a call with my mentor right before this, and he was like saying he's constantly in this death and rebirth. And I was like, yeah, me too. Like sometimes I feel like I'm just like constantly in the death. Like it just feels so exhausting too. Sometimes just like letting go of things. And like I asked this question, I was like, is there anything else but death? And he's like, is there? He's like, that's a really good question. So I don't know the answer to that, but yeah, I don't know.
I know, it's another form of rebirth. It's the inverse of the same process.
Yeah.
Which we did talk about on another episode too.
You can't be reborn again if you don't die. So it's like what pieces of us are asking to die? Because if you listen, it's mostly our individual attachments to those identities or to those pieces that we don't want to let go of. Our ego doesn't want to let go of. Our victim inside of us doesn't want to let go of. And I'm talking to myself too, but because it's and I'm really working on that too. And just can't like clearing the stories and what your story was, because your languaging really does matter too. Like, people that have gone through really intense trauma, like, I mean, we've all gone through trauma, and I am like empathetic towards that. But it's like, at what point do I let my old story hold me back from becoming the next version of myself? Because if I hold on to it, that piece of me will never die. So I'll never grow from there into what's waiting for me in that space anyways. So then it comes down to making the choice of how long do I want to hold on to it. And maybe it's 8 months, and maybe it's a few years, or maybe it's less than that.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I mean, I don't know. There's something a little bit exciting about death, because on the other side of death is the unknown. And I like the unknown. It makes me excited.
It was the most Mikayla sentence ever to say.
Yeah.
Something a little bit exciting about death. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to share that because it was quite profound, and I hope that it gives anyone listening to this that has experienced self-hatred in the past or currently is a little bit of extra permission that doesn't necessarily need to be that way, or even if it was that way and it is that way, like, there's another path on the other side of it. There's like a forgiveness, like, waiting for it on the other side, because that's what it is about the the level of self-hatred that I experienced. In the moment, it feels so unforgivable.
Yeah. Oof. And it's also,
Wow.
I think the other part of it is, and this is deep, it's also okay to feel that way. It's okay to feel like I don't want to forgive myself, or I can't. That's okay too, because that's authentic. That's how you feel. Because I think there's this thing of, I feel like I'm a piece of shit, and I'm judging myself for telling myself that I'm a piece of shit. And it's just like, it's just another shame and judgment cycle. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
definitely another piece of it. Yeah, it's just like, in those moments, sometimes it feels like there's no forgiver on the other side of it. You just convince yourself that, yeah, whether you're trying to find forgiveness in the moment, or you're trying to find it in retrospect or something in the bigger picture, sometimes it can just feel like there is no energy to receive the forgiveness on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And
Well, and there's a lot of really deep layers to that too, because what beliefs come up around, not feeling worthy to accept forgiveness or give forgiveness.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Or
Yeah.
even, I mean, maybe putting into boxes our experience. Like you kind of even said too, like I felt so bad about this. And like how much in our world do we just interpret things between good and bad? Like humans
Mm-hmm.
really to a fault because, and you and I were talking about this in a situation, I suppose, but like, isn't it interesting how we have this like language that's like, it's a decent language for humans. There's more languaging that exists out there. But we have this language that has all these different words to articulate and explain something. But so often we categorize these words and put them here and here and here. And then we put them both in a box of either good or bad. Nothing else, either good or
Mm-hmm.
bad.
Yeah.
And then so you'll be hearing someone tell a story from their perception, and they'll be putting like the labels of like good and bad on it to articulate something. And then so their perception, like, it's almost like a filter over the truth, if that makes sense. Not saying that's not their truth, but do you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I see what
right.
you're
Because we were
saying.
kind of
Yeah.
talking about that just like yesterday a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Trying, yeah, it is really interesting because there is no good or bad, and I think it's really easy for
Right.
humans for us to just categorize things as like good or bad instead of like in your situation. Okay, so like in your situation, what was really happening? Was what you were doing, was it bad? Or were you in a state, you were freezing, you're for sure in a state of freezing. Well,
Yeah.
why can freezing not just be neutral? Um,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or
Right. Yeah. Right. Why is freezing bad in that moment?
right?
Or
Or in a
regardless.
state of
Yeah.
avoidant. Again, it doesn't have to be bad. We put the connotation on that. A
Mm-hmm.
stage of maybe you're recalibrating, maybe your body, your mind was
Yeah.
recalibrating, maybe you were healing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like just
Yeah. And it's also to kind of just goes to show, like in terms of like the way that your mind could go down to explain why it is bad. It's like, yeah, like maybe I did need to take extra time on my PhD because of that whole journey that I went through. But it's also like, is that bad?
no.
No, there's divine timing to
Yes.
everything. And also, I really, I believe, and I see this visual of, you end up at the same place, and maybe one road you're here and one road you kind of maybe take some extra twists and turns. But with divine timing, there are these intersection node points that always bring you to the same place of where you need to be. And so even if something does take you a bit longer, I think that we really need to move. I think that hopefully like we'll be ready to start moving towards a place of really not seeing that as good or bad, and just seeing it as a different path. Because yeah, I kind of do feel like there were maybe a few timelines for my PhD that maybe one was a bit shorter. But either way, I would have had to quit this addiction, and either way, I would have had the suffering after maybe or before. And
Yeah, I would feel
yeah.
into letting go of those other timelines.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of just talking about them for the
Yeah.
sake of like this. I'm not really like attached to
Yeah.
them. I don't have like, but obviously I've thought about it,
Of course.
I've thought about them, but I don't really have an attachment to them, but just in the sense of like, yeah, why anyone would think that this would be bad, or like, would think that being in freeze, but it's because that's what we're being fed. We're being fed these ideas that you need to, that it would be bad to be stagnant for a while, or that being stagnant equals it's going to take me longer. And then it's like, okay, so
yeah.
how do you know that wasn't
Well,
for the
that's
best?
part of the programming and conditioning, that we're supposed to be little robots. Oh my God. Robots.
Robots.
That work for the corporations and the system. And, you know, that's all that we do. So that's part of the changing the paradigm too, because you get to say that my process and my experience wasn't bad, and it's just what it is. It's part of my process, because it was part of your process, and your soul already chose that was going to happen for you.
Yes.
And you're starting to now, I think, get like, I mean, you already knew that it happened for a reason, but get even more of the downloads and kind of clicks as of to why, and making sense, because maybe all of that happened. So now when you graduated, you can forgive yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like this radical forgiveness is, I'm already like applying this lesson to like the current stage of life that I'm in, and to other things, because it's like when you have to forgive yourself.
Yeah. Just about how much that was your process, because the other thing is, as much as you think that you could have had these quicker timelines and stuff, like, I mean, honestly, you don't really know. Like, it could have been no matter how it worked out, you would have had this 8 months somewhere. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So, yeah.
Because it's like, once you have this, because that's the thing, it's like, you know, it almost makes me think that it's like, because energy is so not, it can't be created or destroyed. I built up, like, whatever thing that I built up in myself to get myself to that point had to be undone. You know, I created this big wound up energy ball of limiting beliefs, of whatever. It had to be undone at some point. There was no getting around it. And so because you're going to have to untangle these things one way or another, it's like, that process had to happen. And if it didn't happen there in that time, it just would have come out somewhere else. So I feel like that's kind of how it goes. But obviously, you know, I do think there was a lot of past life stuff all rolled up into that, and that's the thing with this too. Sometimes a lot of how deep this stuff goes doesn't even necessarily come from this lifetime.
Yeah, I still need to do a past life regression on you. Do you want to do it on the podcast? Not today, guys, but okay. We'll do that. We'll do that on the podcast so everyone can listen in and see what that's like. But yeah, I feel like, like, I don't know, the 8 months just, I had a thought and it kind of left me, but it was just really part of your process and your transitioning and shifting. And it was really necessary, because I feel like even if the timeline had been quicker, I don't know if your outcome would have been as strong as you would have liked.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So it would have been more of like a race to the finish line. And with, because I know you had your what do you call it when you sit in front of all your colleagues, and your defense. I want to say dissertation, but that's something else, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it was a defense
big
of my
words
dissertation.
For me.
Big words.
Not really, but like, kind of. Yeah, like it could have been rushed, and you might not have articulated things as well as you wanted to, or maybe like had the confidence there. Like there was that, like that 8 months, and it's very interesting that it's an 8, because it was serving you in so so many ways, but it's so easy to just put it in the box and say this was a bad version of me or this was a bad time in my life. And it's like, it's just
Yeah.
your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a piece
Mm-hmm.
of your life, a piece of everything that makes Alyssa in this human experience at this point in time or that point in time.
Yeah. It helped my roots grow deeper in this time. It enriches your experience, and I definitely think there's a lot of necessary stuff that happened from
And
that.
also, again, our souls choose our experience. So how powerful of a soul are you to choose that experience for yourself because you know you're going to learn from it, grow from it, and get yourself and you're going to move through it. How powerful are you that you chose that for
Mm-hmm.
yourself because you know you can handle it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I really do feel very tangibly stronger from it. And even now, just in any procrastination cycles that I'm in or any whatever, I definitely am able to be like, well, look at what I got through, or have the like rationale to know that even if you're so zoomed in on this one thing that you're procrastinating or something, to really truly know that it doesn't really
It
matter. It's not
doesn't.
gonna affect
I
the long
mean,
run.
yeah,
It's
and
really
that's such a good
not.
message too is just zoom out. Just zoom out because like we are living on a rock that's flying through space. And that's it. Like we get so caught
Yes.
up in the I have to do this and I should be doing this, but like your experience really is what you choose it to be. Like you don't have to do anything. You don't have to go to your job. You don't have to be in a partnership with this person. You don't have to do anything. You tell yourself you do, but you don't. Like, and of course there's layers to that, but you
Nope.
every second of the day, you always have the choice of
Yes.
co-creating your reality.
Mm-hmm. And I remember, like in that time when you were like, you definitely are good at like kind of really emphasizing this teaching of like the choice and having the choice. And I really do always go back to in that time when you were helping me with this stuff about the shame and like you have the choice like from this day that I just quote unquote wasted away. Like I can choose to be really shameful about it, or I can choose to be compassionate and to kind of just look forward and forgive it all. And yeah, that definitely kind of was a turning point too, that realization of the choice. And if you are really in the depths of this shame spiral, and they call it a shame spiral for a reason, because it's hard to get out of. It's very much a cycle, and you feel like you're in it, and you feel like it's moving you around like a whirlpool. And I know it, and I feel like we all know
Well, and
it.
that's also the
And
point is it's a thing for a reason
mhm,
because more of us than less of us
yeah.
experience it. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
it's choosing when you're in the whirlpool, where do I get off? Where do
Mm-hmm.
I,
Right. Where do I
yeah.
get off? And it's very disorienting. Like, I just feel like the metaphor of it and
Yeah.
the visual is all just so necessary and accurate because it's so disorienting. But I just think that a lot of it really starts with just permission.
Yeah.
And like when I went back to like permission for it to be okay, because like and this is what the lesson that I'm really taking forward, and I really just feel like kind of this deep calling to help people that have been in this, and especially obviously for me it looks like in the form of academia, just because, and PhD programs or whatever, just because I know that environment so well. And it just applies for everything. Like whatever you experience, you're meant to help people that have gone through it, because then you have the keys. And when I have gone back to visit my school, and I've talked to some grad students, And I have seen that they also have no idea that other people are in these deep dark holes, and they have the exact same thoughts that I do. And I've already kind of spoken to some of them, and I've told them how normal it is to go through these long stages of depression at certain points in the program and everything. And just this exact type of environment, I know how hard it is to find support in those environments, and just kind of like seeing the relief on their faces of just someone else telling them, like looking them in the eyes and like saying like, I have fallen on my face flat for about a year and I still got through. Like, it's okay. It's not a death sentence. Like, it's okay. And just like seeing them be like so relieved by that, and just it's giving people permission. And depending on the type of cutthroat environment that your work or your school or whatever is in, it just like, I know all too well, nobody gives you permission sometimes.
And that's huge too, because if you wouldn't have gone through that experience, you wouldn't have been able to say the same thing to those kids. You wouldn't have been able to have the same message. And I know you get told over and over and that, things happen for a reason and our experiences happen for a reason, but it is really cool when you start to see some of it back. Cause
Yes,
like maybe
it is. And I'm
maybe you're going to be a cosmic spiritual life coach or PhD coach or teacher, cosmic spiritual teacher or something. And these teachings are going to be your stories. Cause that's how people teach, is through stories. Like I was just at a thing on the weekend where so much stuff was just stories about adventures, but because they had teachings in it.
Wow, that's so interesting. I don't think I've ever thought about that. Like teaching through stories like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. I'm just really now in the last few months, I'm 100% living and like starting to embody teaching what and helping others get to the other side of what I've struggled with already. And there's this one person too that she's like in the last few months of her PhD program, and she was in an extremely similar freeze mode to me to that I was, and I was like, listen, and I'm like literally like metaphorically like, take like pulling her up from the ditch that she's in, because I was in it too. And like, and she's saying like, I don't know, I can't even describe it. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I just feel so stupid that I can't, like, I know I just need to just do it, but I just feel so stupid that I don't know why I can't just do it. And I'm like, no, you're not. It's not
Shame
stupid.
spiral.
It's not like, yep. And really just kind of helping her, giving her the tools and just showing by example. And it has been really cool, and it feels really good to be able to do that, obviously, for other people. And so I think because I would like to continue doing that in ways.
Well,
and
you definitely are.
So
and just
good.
Your own vibration of healing yourself. It's like the ripple effect that I talk about at the beginning all the time. It is self-healing is healing others. Like we are all one. There is no difference. It is all infinity or whatever. But yeah. There's a lot of
healing yourself is healing others.
But yeah, and I've seen that too. Even it's interesting with some of the clients I have or the sessions I have. They'll start talking and be like, "This is my story," and I'm like, am I talking to myself? Like the amount of people that I've had come through,
right?
That start like it's crazy sometimes where I'm just like, yeah.
Oh yeah, you know what else that reminds me of? Like when I had this realization, I was texting in a group. I have a group chat with my brother-in-law Brandon, who was on an episode of this podcast, and my sister, my sister and my brother. And I was, telling them like the morning after this whole realization about the forgiveness and how I didn't need to hate myself so much during that time. And of course it was still so fresh, so I'm like crying as I'm typing it, whatever. And Brandon was saying like, and even Brandon, like we're all just typing in a group chat, he was like, I'm now getting emotional and I'm crying remembering when I had this realization too, because he has also had similar realizations, you know, on his past, and there's something about it that kind of in certain ways when it clicks, and he was saying like, I'm now getting emotional because I'm remembering when I realized that, and when I had this realization and this liberation of it. And it's really, it's very powerful.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I've been noticing that a lot lately, where it like comes up when I'm having sessions with people, and I'm just like, wow, how interesting that the universe orchestrated this so that now I can, from the tools that I built through my experience, share that with someone else for the point for where they're at.
Yep. Yeah, it's so cool once you start like getting into that layer, but it's also like, it's also always happens because we're always moving through different layers of things. So like what kind of just came to me is like, I've already done this multiple times for every previous chapter of my life. This is just another iteration of it, which is nice.
And probably in your past lives as well.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna wrap up there for this portion of this 2-part episode. Thank you very much for listening. So please be sure to give us a rating, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening. And also find us on YouTube at the Orphic Podcast on YouTube, at the Orphic Podcast on Instagram. My Instagram is at interdimensional.astrophysics. Follow me there.
And I'm at Mariposa Moonchild on Instagram, so please follow me there as well. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yes, thank you for being here, and stay tuned for the next part of this episode next week. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good one, so make sure you turn in.
Okay, see you next time. Bye.